in this video, you will discover why so many podcasts struggle to grow their shows. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's not what you think. So bear with me. So look, my name is Anthony Winery. I'm the co-founder of GetMoreListeners.com, a company helping entrepreneurs of podcasts turn a slow growth show into a rapidly growing positive ROI show. Over the last 4 years, I've interviewed and coached 350 plus podcasters, and I'm a co-host of Why Your Podcast Isn't Growing, which generates around $10,000, over $10,000 of attributed sales each and every month. But look, this isn't about me, it's about you, so let's dive straight in. Because you see, most podcasters think that they're struggling to grow their show because they haven't got enough exposure. Maybe as a type of guest I'm getting on, maybe it might be that I haven't got a big enough audience when it comes to social media, therefore I can't turn my social media following into actual listeners. But here's the thing, it's actually none of these things here. It's not because, you're not getting enough exposure, it's not because you're guests, and it's definitely not because of social media, because again, we both know you're already promoting a hell of a lot on social media, and that doesn't seem to work. Now, look, I recently came across a concept known as sleepwalking, and it just struck a nerve to me. And honestly, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And it was part of this book called Reality Transfer. For now, I'm about to get very woo-woo. So if you're an entrepreneur with a podcast who's not into your woo-woo, just bear with me, because honestly, this speaks so true. So what does it mean by sleepwalking? Or rather, what does it mean to be a sleepwalker? The best way I can explain this is, I think we've all been there where we've either met someone new or someone at a party where they have this look in their eye that you can tell that they're on a mission, that they know where they want to go, and they speak with so much confidence and conviction to the point where it's almost magnetic. It's almost like deep inside that this guy or this gal, they're not hit about. They mean what they say and they're going to do what they say. And again, it's like they have this magnetism, they walk through life with a sense of mission, a sense of purpose, and you just know that you shouldn't get in their way because they're going to get to their goal. That is someone who is intentional. That's someone who's on a mission. That's not a sleepwalker. We've also been there or met someone new or old, or maybe some friends where we know that they're just kind of going through life, just stumbling across life. Whatever happens to them, so be it. They will take it. They don't stop, think, and be intentional about the actions they want to take in order to get to the goals they have in their life. They don't even really have goals. So great, but what the hell does this have to do with podcasting? You see, after interviewing and coaching 350 plus podcasts at this point now, I can genuinely say that most podcasters have incredible intention, have incredible shows, host incredible interviews, and have incredible guests. But oftentimes what screws them up isn't actually, from what I can see, or what screws us up isn't the podcast itself. It's more so the mindset around growing the podcast. It's more so being stuck in the nuts and bolts of actually running a show, of having guests on, of interviewing these different peoples, of thinking about the growth of our podcast. Those are elements that, again, kind of have us stuck in the nuts and bolts, that we kind of lose some intentionality, lose that force of like, how do I improve my show? How do I make things better? How do I constantly iterate to my podcast? Look, again, we speak to so many podcasts day in and day out. And if I ask you right now, when was the last time you sat down and thought for more than 3 hours in the last 6 months about how to grow your podcast in a sit-in? Like actually sat down with yourself or your co-host and just thought, how do I grow my podcast? Create a game plan and then take the game plan and execute. It's hard, right? Because when you're a business owner and entrepreneur with a podcast, and the podcast is an arm of your business, you don't really always prioritize it. So it takes a back seat. But by it taking a back seat, you end up screwing yourself over because, well, it's not a priority. And if it's not a priority, then why would you be incentivized to carve out time out of your already busy day to strategize or invest in order to hit your goals? So you don't. And again, it's not really our fault. It's very easy to get stuck in the nuts and bolts, especially when you're at this alone or with a small intimate team. That's what sleepwalking is. And I know that might sound very, airy-fairy at the moment, but I want to give you practical examples and signs that you might be sleepwalking. And then, of course, going to tell you exactly what to do instead. Here are some telltale signs that you yourself might be sleepwalking. Number one, you start getting lazy with your episode titles. You name your episode title stuff like, Anthony, the name of your host, and then something super generic like building courage and growing through pain. Like, again, that's sleepwalking when you're not really understanding that your episode titles are the thing that's going to pull your listeners in, is the thing that's going to keep your current listeners coming back for more, and it's also the thing that's going to attract new listeners. And if you're lazy with your titles, either getting ChatGPT to like help you craft titles, it's not going to help you grow. If you're, just being in a rush, not thinking and really emphasizing how to create really attractive titles, when that's oftentimes the entry point for a new listener discovering your podcast, that's sleepwalking. Another sign is using generic show notes made by AI. Now, I've got got nothing wrong with AI. I like AI and I like ChatGPT. But I think just having generic show notes are super informative, but it's not really speaking to your target audience, where you're not really refining the show notes more, where you're not really being intentional, asking yourself, well, what is the intention of my show notes? Is it just to give information? Or for us, it's about selling the listen to the episode. It's about framing the episode in the right way to sell the listen, not about giving information about yourself or the topic or even your guest. Who cares? It's about creating enough intrigue to convince a stranger or your current listeners to stop, to think, to click and listen. That's intention behind your show notes. And unfortunately, just the generic AI show notes doesn't do that. It doesn't sell the listen enough. Another one is ignoring podcast SEO. Sleepwalking is essentially you just not realizing that you can optimize your podcast for search engines like Apple and Spotify. Those are the main platforms that users go to discover new podcasts. And if you don't have any main keywords in your episode titles, in your show name, in your description, in your show notes, if you don't even have an SEO strategy in place to help you rank higher on the platforms your listeners go to discover podcasts like yours, that's sleepwalking. That's losing the intentionality behind your strategy. And again, it's not your fault. I get it. You're busy. And that's why I want to give you these signs, because you might be thinking, and shut the hell up. Like, I'm working hard on my podcast. I'm creating incredible content. This is complete nonsense. I'm telling you right now, I fell for this myself, where it's easy to get lazy is the wrong word, but it's easy to let things slide and to not be intentional, because again, there's so many moving parts, not just of the podcast, but of your personal life as well as your business. Another one is just stale formats with the show, where you've been doing the same formats over and over again. Maybe you ask the exact same questions to your guests. Maybe you've just had the same style where it's an hour long every single time, but you've not gone in to look at, okay, I'm doing an hour long episode. Am my listeners hyper engaged with these content? Have you looked at your retention time and ask yourself, okay, I've got an hour long episode. People listen on average to 30 minutes. Is it worth me keeping my episode an hour? Should I maybe have it so it's 30 minutes? Maybe it's 20 minutes and it's far more focused rather than just having an hour-long show just because that's all what you've always done. Maybe you're constantly interviewing guests and there's always guest episodes, but your goal is to actually monetize your podcast, but you haven't explored doing solo episodes where it's just you and it's 10 minutes and you're not even sure because, again, you've been sleepwalking. Maybe the solo episode actually performs a lot better than your guest episodes. And maybe the solo episode actually helps you get closer to your goal of monetization because you're now in position as the authority. You're now the person people are looking towards in order to be the person that provides advice, that provides the value, that provides the perspective. You're now the authority figure because you decided to experiment with a different format. But sleepwalking is not even having a thought of experiments with different format. It's just, again, being stuck in the nuts and bolts of how you've always done your show. Sleepwalking is unfocused promotions when you simply just say, hey, you're promoting on social media. Hey, check this episode out, new episode out, without analyzing what actually works best within a given social media platform, whether that's LinkedIn, Facebook, your newsletter. Understanding the unique platform you want to promote on, because that's going to change. Promoting on short form clips versus your newsletter are very different things, or on Facebook and LinkedIn, very different things. And the actual content itself is you giving information and talking about the guest and the guest and the guest. But again, is that really the best way to turn a stranger online who's just discovered your podcast into an active listener of your show? Maybe not, right? Maybe a better approach might actually be to provide value in the promotion post itself, build intrigue around what topics you cover, and then share the episode. Maybe a much more valuable promotion is you finding an online community where your audience are or where they hang out, and asking a specific question based on your episode, and then reaching out to members who engage in that question and sharing a specific episode with them. Or maybe it's you sharing a story about how you landed a high profile guest who's now on your podcast and sharing that as a promotional piece in of itself, and then sharing the intriguing pieces and things that you've learned and adding a soft call to action that people can check out the show if they're interested in finding out more. These are all the different things and signs that you might be sleepwalking. Again, these are just general signs, and I'm sure there's a ton more. It could be getting lazy with your actual, producing of the show. But we've mentioned so far lazy episode titles, generic show notes, ignoring podcast SEO, not even realizing podcast SEO is an effective way to be discovered by new listeners. Stale format, just kind of doing what you've always done before for the last year, 2 years, 3 years, and not experimenting with different formats that actually might be way better suited for yourself. and way more enjoyable and valuable for your audience. And then unfocused promotion, just saying, check out my episode, and not really thinking about what's the best way to grab the attention of my ideal listeners, to keep them hooked, to keep them engaged, and then to give them a reason to listen to my full episode, not just check it out and here's some information about my guest who's got PhD this. We've seen it all before. Look, the good news is, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. That's not my intention, but I do want to call it out, right? Because I see it day in, day out. The good news is, if you find yourself in this situation, no, number one, it's normal. We all kind of go through it. You're going to go through ebbs and flows. But recognizing these signs in the first place is a sign that you yourself are waking up. And it might sound woo-woo, but honestly, I can't stress enough. This is so true. Like, being present and being intentional about every single aspect of your podcast, from show name to episode title to who you target to description to show notes to your intros to your outros to your CTAs to your cover art to how you promote on social media to how you talk about it to your newsletters to the types of guests you guest. Every single one of these pieces, you have to be so intentional, because it all comes under the package of helping you market and attract the right listeners for your podcast. But more importantly, keeping those listeners coming back for more. It's about asking the right questions and then making the necessary changes, no matter how small they seem, because it's often the compounded effect of all of those small things that makes a big difference. So look, I know this is a very different video, and I want to just be honest about what I see, because I do work with, we work with podcasters day in and day out, and so many people have incredible shows, and it's a shame to not get your content to the right people because you have the power to alleviate pain or to produce pleasure into someone's life, you know. But if you're not being intentional about how you grow your show, the strategy you implement, or even just questioning if how you've been doing things is actually going to help you reach the goals you have, like, things don't just magically take off. Like, it's about intentionality. And that's really my message for this video. So look, if you enjoy this and you want to learn more about what we do, feel free to check out previous videos and check out the link in the description. It's going to take you to a sales pitch where I'm going to pitch you essentially to book a 15-minute discovery call with our team to see how we might be to help you grow your podcast. But if not, feel free to binge through our entire back catalog, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.